All right, we are on to the dry brushing stage. There's actually a couple dry brushing stages. This is the first dry brushing stage. We're using Squig Orange. You definitely don't have to use this. You're looking for a deeper orangish red for the color. Rust is a good thing to try and aim towards. I do have my tile propped up on this 2x4 chunk here. It just helps me get the right angle, especially for the camera. We'll see how this goes. But I'm taking, getting a little paint on my brush, scraping it off, and then I'm really trying to rub all of it off. And then I'm just going to come in and I'm dry brushing. And I would consider this a fairly heavy dry brush. You don't want, this isn't a light one. You want to get, definitely all the raised areas should be covered. And then I actually do want to get some on the a little bit lower, the flat panels as well. Rust is what we're looking for here. So patchy, which is why it's dry brush. You don't want a solid red or a solid brownish orange red for the rust, but you do want to show that it's on there and spreading like rust does. It doesn't cover a surface completely. It kind of grows in patches where protective coating paint has been worn down. So that's what we're looking for there. Get a good cover. Oh, my arm is in the way. Let me see if I can do this left-handed. That's always fun. There we go, that works. Luckily dry brushing isn't super accurate. So I'm just going to keep going through with this, trying to get, like I said, you don't want a ton on, but fairly heavy dry brush. You don't want it covered, but you do want this orangish red in as many places as you can. It always helps to look at pictures of rust to kind of get an idea or a feel for what this should look like. Definitely helps to make sure that your brush is completely dry, as in not wet from the last time you washed it. Before you start this, this is kind of a long, I've done quite a few of these tiles now, so get some washing in between as I go to take a break or deal with something else. But really try and make sure as much of it's off as you can before you start dry brushing, or you're going to just end up painting the area. Here we go, a little bit of left-handed dry brushing for you again. So, not real particular, just make sure as many of the raised edges is covered as you can, and then just kind of some splotching on the flat panels as well. The rust growing in that area, rust and corrosion. So, that's going to be the extent of that wall. I will try to do this back wall here without covering up too much of what you can see. I'm not making any promises though. Yeah, so my arm's in the way there, so we'll try and, there we go. It's definitely not ideal dry brushing conditions, but it does seem to be working pretty well. This is actually would be the 10th tile I've dry brushed this on, so my thumb actually on my right hand is getting a little sore. Keep that in mind if you're going to do a full zone Mortalis, or bigger, if you're going to do the 4x4 or even bigger. You might want to space out some of this stuff, because dry brushing does require that you push relatively hard, trying to get the paint off the bristles, and you know, it's difficult on the body parts after a while. Okay. You have to keep switching back to my right hand to pull paint out of the pot, because I'm afraid I'm just going to dunk the brush completely. Oh, here we go. Maybe I can switch back. There we go. Look at that. I have found that having the tile propped up here like this helps a lot for getting a good angle on the side panels, the walls of the Zone Mortalis. The floor, I usually pull the 2x4 and then let it sit flat. I'll show you that in just a second. But for the side panels, otherwise it's really hard to see that you get a good coverage over the thing. So now that we've done that, we'll go ahead and put that flat. Get this out of here. Bump the camera because, you know, why not? And then just show you how the tiles look on the floor. So I like to hit these raised areas real quick. You can see the paint just kind of coming off onto that, and then definitely splotch in some on the flat areas in the middle. That works pretty well. Think about what's going to take wear and tear. Definitely these raised areas, so they're going to rust first, corrode first, as any protective coating, any paint or anything on there gets rubbed off, worn off by foot traffic, travel, things like that. So that's the kind of stuff you want to be primarily rusted or orange here in this case. And then you can just get some of the lower areas as well. I always have problems kind of determining if I have enough paint left on the brush after I wipe it off on the paper towel when I'm dry brushing. This is a nice project for that, because if you get a little bit extra, it's really just not that big a deal. There's just some deeper splotches of rust. Not a huge deal, and in fact some variation would be great while you're doing this. You don't want, you know, a solid rust covering. You want some where it's a little heavier, somewhere it's a little lighter. Works great that way. So got almost the center tile done, and then I will not bore you with me jabbering for the whole rest of this tile, but I will come back and show you what it looks like at the end, what we're going for as a kind of a finished project for this stage of the. So see, I had a little extra paint on there. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but that's a little deeper. Not a big deal. In fact, it looks quite good. Looks good to leave some spots that are very, very lightly rusted. And this is where you can kind of see that overspray of silver we did in the base coating phase, and then the brown wash where we left some stuff showing through. This really starts to come through, where you can see we've got the brown, the silver, and the rust all in an area. You can see this actually looks like a genuinely worn tile, right? It's not a complete covering of paint as stuff wears off, and the rust isn't going to completely cover the area either. So that's where I'm going to show you. I'm going to stop here. I will come back when the tile is done, and we will take a look at kind of the completed piece. See you in a little bit. Alright, I have finished this tile. If I can get my fingers underneath it, we can take a look. You can see that, again, the coverage is not 100% complete, very patchy. Hopefully you can see some variability. I didn't try to make everything identical and get the same amount of coverage across the whole thing. That is definitely not how rust works. And then we'll set that down. We'll take a step over here. So here you can see I have some progress. I finished that four-way tile, but the rest of these are all still brown. And then as we pan back, just kind of a progress check, I have 8 more tiles rusted through this area here. That is as far as I've done. 10 of 16 right now. We'll be back when we start the next stage, which will involve some sponging. Talk to you in a bit.